Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. On the agenda tonight, we're looking at Glen Campbell, and we're going all the way back to some vintage Glen here, playing through back home again in Indiana. So let's get Glen up on screen and see how he gets on.
You ready? I learned this from Wayne Newton. It's about this tempo. 1, 2, 3, back home again. In Indiana, that's the place I long to be. I can still see the candlelight still shining bright through the sycamore for me. The new mown hay and all its fragrance. Oh, I can see right now I'm gonna do 3 courses. And I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash as I dream of my Indiana home. Of the place I used to be, I can still see the candlelight still shining bright through them sycamores for me. The new mown hay and all its fragrance in those fields I used to roam. 'Cause I can dream about the moonlight on the Wabash and then dream of my Indiana, dream of my Indiana, dream of my Indiana home.
And there we have it. What a performance that was by Glen. And what I love about this video is that sometimes when I've covered Glen in the past and I've mentioned the word shred, a lot of people, or at least a few people, say, oh, where was Glen shredding in this particular video, because I can't spot it. And if you do play guitar and you know what shredding's all about, it's generally a fast passage of notes where you're using alternate picking, sweep picking, basically something that's a little bit more than hammer-ons and pull-offs, even though sometimes people do use shredding as a term to cover basically anything that sounds fast. But this video is such a great representation of Glen's technical ability on the fretboard, because we have got absolutely consistent 16th notes running throughout this whole solo, and that's something that takes a hell of a lot of practice to get this amount of synchronization and this amount of accuracy. Let me bring your attention to the tone as well that we've got here. Absolutely nothing on this tone. There's no reverb, there's no delay, there's absolutely nowhere to hide, no overdrive, and it is just pristine technique. And Glen was one of those artists that has such a great voice that connected with so many people, because he could take a song that was even written by somebody else and make it his own and really connect with those lyrics, and then make the audience connect with the lyrics as well. But this video really does showcase that playing ability. And this video is actually called Glen Campbell Shreds the Guitar, so it is an apt title, and it's from the Friends of Glen YouTube channel, which corresponds to the Glen Campbell Facebook group over on Facebook. If you want to join that group, then you can do. But what I love about this video is the amount of technical elements that are thrown in there, and it's so obvious. Sometimes when Glen would play a track, he might go off into a solo and have some hammer-ons and pull-offs and a really nicely phrased melodic solo that isn't particularly showing off one technique, or at least a technique that's very difficult to pull off live and consistently. Whereas in this video, there are no hammer-ons or pull-offs in sight. It's one of those techniques that I say, if you do want to speed up your playing, then hammer-ons and pull-offs halves are the way to go to begin with, because it's going to be a lot easier than going straight into that alternate picking. But Glen absolutely has the alternate picking down here. You also have a little bit of a sweep pick in there as well, just going across 2 or 3 strings throughout this whole solo. It is pretty much a blink and you'll miss it situation, because there's so much going on, because we are absolutely hammering the 16th notes here. And if you don't understand what 16th notes are, when Glen is counting in the track, and that's another thing I want to mention about the counting, the fact that Glen's so on the ball, but also the band are such professionals. Obviously it's very well rehearsed, but the way that they come in, everything is absolutely spot on with that backing, and absolutely spot on with Glen's counting. And let me just explain the 16th notes, because if you don't know what that is, if you're not really into music or you don't play, it's the intro. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 that Glen was counting in, and that's a bar. You have 4 beats in a bar if you're playing standard timing 4/4 time signature. And if you've got 4 beats in a bar, that means that if you have to get 16 notes into that same bar, it means that if I'm going 1, 1, 2, 3, 4 like that, and I'm going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, when I'm hitting my leg, those are 16th notes. They have to go so much faster to fit into that same space that you can count 4. And it's relentless throughout the whole solo. Like I said, he's never missing a beat on all of those accents, all of those emphasis points that he's throwing in there. And also having that little sweep pick in there as well, keeping that so nicely in time with everything else. This is really top level playing, and I'm not talking about top level playing and then you get other guitarists like, you know, Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and Van Halen with tapping. I'm talking about Glen Campbell being up at the same level. He would have practiced as much, if not more, as those guys to get this down because of the clean tone. And this is another thing that really does get overlooked, especially in country music, is that people don't realize, especially if they don't play guitar, what shredding is. When you put your guitar through an amp, you put overdrive on it, you put delay on it, you put reverb on it, then you do alternate picking on minor scales, and that is seen as shredding, and sweep picking as well. But all generally it seems to be in that minor key. It's not really happy stuff that you're listening to when you're listening to those classic 80s guys shred. But when you take exactly the same technique and play it in a major key, and jazz elements in here as well, by the way, this is what you get. This is shredding in a major key without that safety net of overdrive, delay, reverb. I just want to draw your attention to the technicalities of playing this fast and this accurately as well, because the left hand and the right hand synchronization I've mentioned has got to be spot on the whole time, but the left hand has to be so organized, because playing at these speeds, you've got to have that left hand. Each finger has got to be over its fret. And I've mentioned before about those top technical players having that 1 finger per fret rule, where the next note you want to play can't be too far away because you lose time trying to jump to the note. It's got to be where one of your fingers already is. So you'll see in those runs the way that Glen's using first finger, and then if he's got it a tone above, then he'll be using that third finger, semitone, little finger, and just keeping it really organized is essential. And to keep that all organized means that you can now speed up your playing, because you don't have to move very far in order to get those notes. Obviously, you have to do shifts up the fretboard, because every scale is not just conveniently marked out for you just all along the same frets so that your first finger never has to move. You still have to be really quick across that fretboard, shifting up and shifting down in order to keep those shapes really nice and fluid. And the amount of work that goes into a solo like this, and a really fast solo that might be alternate picked or sweep picked or economy picked, depending on your preference for how you navigate through those strings, it's really underappreciated by people, the amount of work it takes, because first of all, you've got to make sure that your pick is going in the right direction to pick the note that your left hand's going to be on. So all of that has to get pre-worked out. You can't do that on the fly. And the left hand, you've got to work out how many notes you're playing on each string so that your right hand works out in the right pattern for alternate picking if that's what you're using. So all of this is absolutely pre-worked out to the nth degree to make sure that each note can follow on as seamlessly as possible. There's no road bump in the way. Nothing's going to get in the way of your technique in order to follow these notes on seamlessly. And that's something that Glen would have done. I mean, would have spent so much time getting this down, so many hours, day in, day out, week in, week out. And it does get to a point that when you are very confident with that alternate picking, your hands do start to work out in a way that you always fall into a pattern. So your playing then generally starts to fall into the groove of always picking the right amount of times for the string that you then want to jump over onto the next string. But generally you won't have a solo that is this intense of just absolutely alternate picking the whole way. You'll sometimes get hammer-ons and pull-offs where you can take a little break and then it's not as important to have that direction always spot on with the right hand. And I didn't want this video to be too technically based, but it is difficult when you're trying to explain things about a player that's at this kind of level. And I think guitarists watching this will probably understand the terms a little bit more and will understand the amount of work that goes into playing at this level. But hopefully some of you guys that don't play have at least got an appreciation of the kind of level we're talking about with this solo. It is absolutely top technical playing. Like I mentioned, all those other genres, you can just change the scale that you're playing and it will sit in there. But thank you so much for suggesting this video for me to take a look at, and keep those suggestions coming in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!